What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. And guess what? It is me, your guy, the Young Brother of Soul. First and foremost, yes, I know it's been a while again since the Young Brother of Soul had posted a episode on the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. But sometimes you got to take a break, but sometimes it's always good to keep going, just to get that support, from everybody. And, I just want to thank everybody that has been supporting me throughout my podcast again, and, so on and so on. I really do appreciate it. As y'all can see, I have a basketball, my hometown team, 76ers. Well, we'll talk about them a little later. What I'm going to be talking about is something different again, like I did before. On today's episode, on the Young Brother of Soul podcast, what I'm going to be talking about, NBA teams that are cursed. Now, before I go on with this list, or should I say episode, like I said before, do I believe in teams, that certain teams, not just football, basketball, hockey, even baseball, teams that are cursed? Yeah, I do believe it. For some reason, these NBA teams that are cursed due to bad luck, bad drafting, championship droughts, haven't won a championship, and then, of course, bad injuries. Now, to be honest with you, these teams that have are cursed, that I believe, for some reason, they cannot have any good luck. For some reason, I don't know what it is. And some of these teams on this list do have championships, but there are championship droughts with these teams too. So, starting off on the list of an NBA team that is cursed, not to me, I guess everybody, leave a comment if you feel as though that this is the most cursed team in the NBA. And this team, ladies and gentlemen, is the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, for some reason, the Los Angeles Clippers are definitely cursed. They definitely went through so many team relocations, because at first they were the Buffalo Braves, then they relocated to San Diego when they became the San Diego Clippers, and then later on they will become the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, a lot of people did question that. Why move to LA where LA already had a basketball team which was already winning championships? Well, then owner, who was a very controversial owner, Donald Sterling, decided to move the team to LA, I guess because of a bigger market. Well, to be honest with you, the LA Clippers are one of the NBA teams that never won a championship in the NBA. And for some reason, they have not made a finals appearance. They came close once in the 2021 Western Conference Finals, but for some reason, they have not made an appearance in the NBA Finals. And not only that they will go through very controversial relocations, they will also have a very controversial owner. And I said his name earlier, Donald Sterling. Back in 2014, Donald Sterling was recorded, or should I say, being recorded, having a conversation with a woman saying that very racial remarks. And ever since he got caught saying those very racial remarks, he had to sell the team in order for him to get out the situation. And he has been banned in the NBA ever since 2014. I think if he would have kept his mouth shut and kept those comments to himself, he probably still would be the owner of the LA Clippers. Well, I technically don't see no difference because the Clippers, like I said, they only made one Western Conference appearance, which of course they lost. But do I see the LA Clippers winning the championship? No, I don't see them winning the championship no time soon. Like I said, I already had a team in the NBA in LA, which is the Lakers, who have 17. So yeah, if I was from LA, I definitely would be more of a Lakers fan than a Clippers fan. I think everybody would be more of a Lakers fan than the Clippers fans. I mean, 17 championships to none. Yeah. And not only that, they passed on a great Dirk Nowitzki in the 1998 NBA draft. They also had some very bad draft picks. I'm sorry. And like I said, they passed on Dirk Nowitzki, who would go on and become a legendary player for the Dallas Mavericks and win the 2011 NBA Finals. So, yeah, poor Clippers fans. You know what? Come to think of it, like I said, I'd rather be a Lakers fan than a Clippers fan if I was from LA. Yeah. Another NBA team that is definitely cursed. Now, this is another team that has never won an NBA championship. They've been to 3, but they never won a championship. Now, this team is definitely cursed. They've been to quite a few Western Conference Finals, but like I said, they've been to 3 NBA championships. And of course, they lost all 3 of them. Like I said, this is one of the teams that never won an NBA championship in the NBA. And this team, ladies and gentlemen, is the Phoenix Suns. For some reason, the Phoenix Suns cannot win it all. I don't know what it is. They have good players, they have good coaching, they have great teams, but for some reason they cannot win it all. Like I said, they've been to 3 NBA Finals. Their first NBA Finals appearance was in 1976, which they eventually lost to the most dominant franchise in the NBA. Of course, that was the Boston Celtics. No way they were going to beat the Boston Celtics in 1976. Then, of course, they would go back into the NBA Finals in 1993 with Charles Barkley. Well, they fell short again in the NBA Finals against Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Of course, that was during the Chicago Bulls 90s dynasty, and that was their first three-peat. Their last, well, yeah, like I said, their first three-peat back in 1993. I mean, boy, there was no way that the Suns were going to beat the Chicago Bulls in the finals that year. I mean, like I said, they had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Steve Kerr. Like, I don't believe it was Steve Kerr. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm wrong. I think it was Steve Paxson. There we go. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah. No way they were going to beat the Chicago Bulls in the NBA Finals. They would reappear in the NBA Finals for the 3rd time in 2021. They actually had a 2-0 lead in the series. Well, that team fell apart, and the Milwaukee Bucks would win 4 more straight, and the Milwaukee Bucks will go on and win the NBA Finals that year. I mean, you had a 2-0 lead in the NBA Finals. I mean, Lord have mercy. And believe it or not, that was the last time that the Phoenix Suns ever made it to the NBA Finals. Will they ever win an NBA Finals? Who knows? But like I said, the Phoenix Suns are definitely one of the most cursed teams in the NBA. Yeah. Another team, for some reason, that is cursed. Now, this team, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, has the longest NBA championship drought. Well, during those finals, that's when basketball first started, basically within a few years. Of course, nobody wasn't really watching basketball. It was either football or baseball. And this team, ladies and gentlemen, that has the longest championship drought is the Sacramento Kings. Now, before I go on with the Sacramento Kings, that they are one of the most cursed teams in the NBA, they actually do have an NBA championship, like I said, but this is the longest championship drought. Well, the last time that the Kings won this NBA Finals, well, they wasn't even called the Kings. They were actually called the Rochester Royals, which they won the NBA Finals in 1951. They also won an NBL Finals in 1946. Of course, they still had the NBL and the NBAA. You know, that was before the NBA. Like I said, basketball during the early days wasn't very popular. Well, the Sacramento Kings definitely were an NBA team that relocated from city to city to city. They would relocate to Cincinnati as they became the Cincinnati Royals. Then they would relocate to Omaha and Kansas City as they became the Omaha Kansas City Kings. And then they would relocate to the city of Sacramento, which they are still in the city of Sacramento to this day. And believe it or not, they have not made it back to the NBA Finals since 1951. And they made it to a couple NBA Western Conference Finals, but yeah, the Sacramento Kings, they're definitely cursed. I mean, they made it to the 2002 Western Conference Finals against the LA Lakers, which we're going to talk about that a little later, because there was some very, very, very controversial calls in that 2002 NBA Western Conference Finals. Now, of course, the Lakers were going in and win the NBA championship that year. They're a three-peat because they were swept the New Jersey Nets. Yeah, the 2002 Western Conference Finals. Like I said, we're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about that a little later, because they had a player like Mike Bixby, Chris Webber. You know, that definitely was a good team in 2002. Well, like I said, they lost the Western Conference Finals to the LA Lakers to very controversial calls. And like I said, the Sacramento Kings, they had a 16-year playoff drought. And that playoff drought was from 2007 to 2022. Yeah, that's a very long time not to be in the playoffs. Well, all sports go through that, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's still a long time. But like I said, the Sacramento Kings, they have the longest championship drought in the NBA. Will they ever win another NBA Finals? Who knows? But this is a team that everybody talks about of relocating again. Well, excuse me. Loyal Sacramento Kings fans, I don't think they're going to let the Kings go anywhere. So, yeah. But yeah, definitely the Sacramento Kings are definitely one of the most cursed teams in the NBA. Yeah. Another team that is cursed in the NBA. Of course, this team is another team that has not won an NBA championship. They've been to 3 Western Conference Finals, but they haven't made an appearance in the NBA Finals. And that team is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, the Minnesota Timberwolves, how can I say? They actually had some great players. They actually had some great teams. I mean, they made it to the Western Conference Finals in 2004. I mean, Kevin Garnett, that team, they were balling that year. But, of course, they would lose that Western Conference Finals to the LA Lakers. And then, of course, they made it to back-to-back Western Conference Finals in 2024, which they lost to the Dallas Mavericks, and 2025, which they lost to the OKC Thunder. Now, they actually have a star player right now, Anthony Edwards, who's a phenomenal basketball player for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Well, they also passed on Steph Curry twice in the NBA draft. I mean, you passed twice on Steph Curry? Wow, what is wrong with you? But anyway, do I see the Minnesota Timberwolves winning the championship? I don't know right now. Right now, like I said, they're one of the most cursed teams in the NBA. And to be honest with you, like I said, the NBA, Minnesota actually had 5 NBA championships, but those were the Minneapolis Lakers. Of course, that was in the 40s and 50s, but this is definitely a total different team. But this is definitely a team that is cursed. I mean, like I said, they haven't even made it to the finals yet. They made it to 3 Western Conference finals. But is there a possibility, like I said, that the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to win the finals? Who knows? But like I said, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. But Minnesota Timberwolves are definitely cursed in the NBA. Yeah. Another team that is cursed in the NBA. Now, some of y'all may say that this team is cursed. Some of y'all say they may not be cursed. Well, yeah, I think they are cursed. And this team, ladies and gentlemen, is the New York Knicks. Now, believe it or not, this team actually has 2 NBA championships. Now, before I go on with this curse, rumor has it that some New York Knicks fans claim it that it's the Kardashian curse. That's what I was going. That's what I heard. That's what they were going by. That's what they said. Some, not all, but yeah, we're not sure if that's what the case is. But as of right now, like I said, the Knicks only have 2 NBA championships, which they won in 1970 and 1973. As they both defeated those NBA championships, they defeated the LA Lakers. And believe it or not, the last time that the Knicks ever made it to the finals, 1999, which they lost to the San Antonio Spurs that year. I mean, they had players like Patrick Ewing, who was phenomenal. And then, of course, they made it to the 1994 NBA championship, which they lost in Game 7 to the Houston Rockets, to Hakeem Olajuwon. But for some reason, as of right now, do I think that the New York Knicks are cursed? Yes and no. No and yes, because they've actually been having a great team for these past couple of years. Jalen Brunson is a phenomenal basketball player. He might be my cousin, so we just gonna leave it at that. But yeah, for some reason the Knicks have been coming up, but they really haven't been back to the finals since 1999. And the last time that they went to the Eastern Conference Finals, I believe, was in 2025, which they lost to the Indiana Pacers. But for some reason, I actually do see the New York Knicks winning an NBA championship. I actually see the breaking that over 50 years championship drought. But for some reason, before they had the team that they are now, the Knicks, they made it to the playoffs quite a few times. Don't get me wrong, especially when they had Carmelo Anthony, but they just couldn't get over that hump. They just couldn't win it all. I don't know what it was, you know. But like I said, I actually do see the New York Knicks winning another championship. I don't know when, within the next couple of years, but for some reason, like I said, they have the team, they have the players, and they have the coach to do it. But as of right now, on this list, the New York Knicks are definitely one of the most cursed teams in the NBA. And like I said, fans claim that it was the Kardashians' curse, but that's what the fans say. I'm just going by what the fans say, okay? And not only that, like I said, I got family in New York, so I'm gonna ask them. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna ask them and see what they say. They probably look at me like, oh, but you know that I'm just going by what I heard. You know what I'm saying? So another team that is cursed in the NBA. For some reason, this team passed on two great players in the draft. They have a championship, but this team, ladies and gentlemen, is the Portland Trailblazers, known for a draft curse. Now, for some reason, like I said a couple seconds ago, the Trailblazers passed on two great players at one point. But they did win the championship in 1977 as they defeated my hometown team, Sixers. Well, I wasn't even born, so I can't get mad at that. Well, actually, the Sixers actually had a 2-0 lead in that series, and then the Blazers came back and won it all. But Bill Walton, but we'll talk about that another time. But, yeah, for some reason, the Portland Trailblazers, they have some bad draft picks for some reason. For some reason. Drafting Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan. Can you imagine if the Trailblazers would have drafted Michael Jordan? They probably would have had more championships than what they have right now. Yeah, I'm just leave it at that. And then, of course, drafting Greg Oden over Kevin Durant. But Greg Oden, to be honest with you, I think he was a good player. In my personal opinion, I believe and I think that he definitely was a phenomenal player in the NBA for the Portland Trailblazers. But the only thing is about that is that he was very injury prone. You know, he was a big dude. I think he was 6'11", 7 feet tall, 7 foot, something like that. He was a center. And he kept getting injured, his knees. But I believe if he would have never had those injuries, he probably would have been in the league longer way than he would have been, and he probably would have been more dominant. And yeah, I don't know about him winning a championship though, but I definitely, to me, my personal opinion, like I said, Greg Oden, to me, he was all right. He was an all right basketball player. My personal opinion from what I seen him play, because, you know, I'm not normally a basketball guy, but yeah. And of course, the last time that they made it to the NBA Finals, of course, was in 1990, which they lost to the Detroit Pistons, the bad boys. And of course, 1992 against the Chicago Bulls. Of course, that was Michael Jordan's second straight NBA championship. But yeah, that definitely was the last time that the Portland Trailblazers made it to the finals, 1992. Do I ever see them winning? Well, I don't know. I basically don't know. I don't know if I ever see them win another championship, even though I wasn't born when they won their first championship. But yeah, I don't see it coming for some reason. I don't. That's just my personal opinion, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, the Portland Trailblazers are definitely cursed. It's definitely one of the most cursed teams in the NBA. And last but not least, yes, I had to do this team last. I think you already know who I'm about to say. This team has or is cursed, or one of the most cursed NBA teams in the NBA. And that team is, ladies and gentlemen, my hometown team, the Philadelphia 76ers. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Lord. I love my hometown basketball team, but to be honest with you, if I did or didn't say it before, It's definitely time for another championship, NBA championship for the Philadelphia 76ers. Of course, it's the city of Philadelphia. It's definitely time for another World Series championship for the Phillies, but we'll talk about that another time. And of course, it's definitely time for the Flyers to win another Stanley Cup, but we'll talk about that another time too. I think, bro, it's been since 1983. It's been since 1983 since the Sixers won the championship. I was definitely not born yet. And not only that, it's 1983. Dr. J, Moses Malone, Bobby Jones, James Toney, Maurice Cheeks. Yeah, they were going to sweep the Lakers in the final. You know, I just realized something. Every time I talk about the teams that are cursed, for some reason, the Lakers are always mentioned, and we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, the Sixers, they have 3 championships. 1955, well, when they were the Syracuse Nationals. 1967, they beat the Warriors because the Warriors used to play in Philadelphia. Of course, we had Wilt Chamberlain. And then, of course, like I said, in 1983, which was the last time that the Sixers won a championship. Oh, my goodness. It's been over 40 years. 40 years since we won a championship in Philadelphia. Yeah, like I said, it's definitely time for another championship, NBA championship for the city of Philadelphia. The last time we went to the NBA Finals, of course, which we lost to the Lakers. Like I said, it's like every time a team played this team or that team, it's always against the Lakers. Like, anyway, the last time that the Sixers were in the NBA Finals, they lost to the LA Lakers. Well, Shaq and Kobe did three-peat, 2001. I'll never forget Allen Iverson. He had a tremendous game 1, and he stepped over Tyronn Lue. And then, of course, the Lakers were going and win 4 straight. Now that I think about it, I think the last time that the Sixers made it to the Eastern Conference Finals was 2001. Trust the process. Boy, I tell you, they've been saying trust the process for how long now? And not only that, we also had some bad draft picks. Oh, my goodness. Who we had? Oh, boy. Michael Carter-Williams, Evan Turner, Jahlil Okafor. Whew. Then, of course, you know what it is, too? I realize some players we draft are always injured their first or second year coming into the league. Of course, prime example, Joel Embiid. Don't get me wrong, Joel Embiid, he's good, but he's not great. He's good, but he's not great. He's good, but he's not great. He was out his first 2 years in the league because of a foot injury. Then, of course, we drafted Ben Simmons, who was out his rookie season. Then, of course, we drafted Nerlens Noel, whatever his name is. He was out his rookie season. Then, of course, we had Markelle Fultz. I actually forgot about him. I honestly did. For some reason, he didn't want to shoot the ball. And then, of course, he had injuries. We traded him. And, of course, we also had Ben Simmons, who definitely has shooting problems. Don't get me started with Ben Simmons. Lord have mercy. And then, of course, we also had some playoff heartbreak. I mean, oh, boy. 2019, we forced a Game 7. I believe if we would have won that game, I think we would have won a championship that year in 2019. But of course, Kawhi Leonard made that game-winning buzzer beater shot when we lost to Toronto. (2021) we lost Game 7. The second, for some reason, we couldn't get past the second round. We lost to the Atlanta Hawks. Ben Simmons passed that ball. Lord have mercy. And that was the end of that game. I was so pissed. I said, oh my God, no, he didn't. He was scared to shoot the ball. Then, of course, we lost to the Heat. We lost to the Celtics. We lost to the Knicks. Is there ever a possibility that my hometown team, the Philadelphia 76ers, are they ever going to win another championship? Who knows, but I would love to see it happen. But I'm getting so tired of trusting the process. And you know what? After the NBA season is over with, hopefully they make it to the playoffs. But if not, they're definitely going to hear from me. And I'm definitely going to have a lot to say about them. But another team, you know, like I said, this should be an honorable mention. The Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks have not won a championship since 1958, which, of course, they were the St. Louis Hawks. And then, of course, they moved to Atlanta, have not won nothing. I believe they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals at least once or twice. But, yeah, they that I know of, they have not won nothing. But yeah, back to my hometown team, the 76ers. I really don't know what to say about them. Like I said, they keep talking about trusting the process and this and that, blah, 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 blah. Like I said, when basketball season is over with, you know, hopefully the Sixers will make it to the playoffs. But even if they do or don't, well, if they don't, they're definitely going to hear from me. And, you know, I'm going to have a lot to say about that. But other than that, yeah, that's definitely my hometown teams, Philadelphia 76ers. They are definitely cursed. Oh, Lord, how long we've been trusting the process, who knows? I just want to see them win the championship. That's all I need to see. Like, come on. It's time for another championship, NBA championship in the city of Philadelphia. The last time we won one was 1983. Players wasn't even celebrating on the court. They were celebrating in the back locker room. Back then, they used to celebrate in the locker room. And then they used to let the fans get on the court. You can't do that now. Like I said, the last time they made it to the finals was 2001. Oh, boy. Any of my fellow 76ers fans, are y'all trusting the process or what? Because, like I said, even if they make it to the playoffs, we'll see how far they go. But if they don't make it to the playoffs, they're going to hear from me. It's like a lot of injuries. And you already know who I'm talking about. The main player that I'm talking about, of course, is Joel Embiid. I think that was a sign when he was out for 2 years because of his foot injury. That definitely was a major sign. But, you know, then, of course, bad draft picks. Lord have mercy. Yeah, but ladies and gentlemen, those are your NBA teams that are cursed due to bad injury, due to bad luck, due to bad draft picks, and of course long championship droughts, and of course not even making it to the championship. Yeah, that definitely hurts, but yeah, let me stop playing. But like I said, ladies and gentlemen, those are your NBA teams that are cursed. If you feel as though that there are more teams that are cursed in the NBA, leave a comment, let me know. And not only that, make sure you tell all your family and friends to subscribe, hit that thumbs up, leave a comment, hit that notification button, and this is the end of this episode of the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. And make sure y'all tune in for some more episodes of the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. And like I said, tell all your family, tell your friends, tell your co-workers to check out the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. Thank y'all and have a good night. And congratulations to the University of Michigan for winning that college championship, NCAA championship. Congratulations. And congratulations to the women's UCLA for winning the NCAA championship game. And yeah, like I said, make sure y'all tune in for some more episodes of the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. Thank you and have a good night.